Welcome everyone to a new edition of Yo, It's the Kicks. It's AB. I'm back once again. So excited to be back live with you all. So really been, you know, uh, enjoying the time off. I had some time off recently. Just came back from Jamaica. But I'm back once again. I got a special guest available, my guy Sean Williams. He's the co-founder of OSD with D Wells and also social studies as well. So he's a legend in the industry. Also a mentor to mine as well. One of the first people in the sneaker industry to really support my movement, support Grails Inc. when I was doing short films back in 2013. And Sean Williams is a wealth of knowledge, always about the culture first. Just have so much knowledge and history about just the culture overall when it comes to music, when it comes to us, as Black people, when it comes to the sneakers, when it comes to always choosing people over sneakers. Always love that term he always has. So definitely amazing person. Really enjoy every time we able to chop it up. So really, really excited for this episode right here. So we definitely gonna get it cracking. So we're gonna get it cracking with everyone, and let me know if you have any questions as well. If you got any questions, put in the comment section. I know we live on YouTube and also live on Instagram as well. So excited for it. So yeah, and we're gonna get it cracking, man. We really is. So definitely excited for this episode. Let me know what you all been feeling, what you all been thinking about as well, as far as with the culture. What y'all been thinking about. What's y'all thoughts on the latest releases? What's your thoughts with everything that's involved when it comes to fashion, when it comes to everything in the culture. So music as well. So it's a lot of stuff been going on. A lot of dope releases as well. So just let me know what you all been thinking So yeah, just want to send a shout out to my previous guest, my man Eddie Kane. Go check out his new EP, Play for Keeps, which is amazing. It's always dope to have my homie on the show, Eddie Kane, man, one of the illest rappers right now, hailing from Bed-Stuy. Also, Terrence Keller. Terrence Keller got one of the illest collections, man, and also so much knowledge on sneakers. He was bringing out so many classic joints. So go follow Terrence Keller from Louisiana. Man, got one of the best pages. It really is, man. So shout out to him. Shout out to my homie Professor Schooler. Man, Schooler been doing a lot of dope stuff, man. Love his page, love his content as well. Kick Story Podcast. Kick Story Podcast is dope. Um, they got a lot of dope stories, man, and also just dope content. So I just want to shout some of those guys out in the culture that's doing dope stuff. So now let me bring my man Sean Paper Chaser Williams right now, the man of the hour.
What's up, bro?
Yo, what's good, Sean? What's up? What's up, man?
It's been a while, man. I'm happy to be back on here with you, man. I'm glad you're still going and
Yeah,
still doing your thing. So I'm happy to be back on here, man.
man, likewise, man. Thank you for coming on the show, Sean. I know I was telling the people before you came on the show that you was one of the first people, UND as well, to support Grails Inc., man, when I was doing my short film. So, and
Yep.
that was back in 2013, and it's still here, still here, still creating and telling my story as well. So, man, just want to say thank you for everything that you have done, far as just in the culture, and also helping the next generation like myself as well throughout that time frame. So, man, really, really, it's always an honor shopping up with you, man. A wealth of knowledge, a lot of gems as well. So, man, thank you for coming on the platform once again.
Back, yo, it's the kicks, man. I'm happy to be here, man. I'm happy to see you still here consistently doing it.
Yeah,
That's one of the things that we've always appreciated is a consistency.
yeah,
You don't care about the numbers, you care about doing the right thing, what feels good, genuine, authentic. So I'm happy to always pull up and we get to kick it, literally.
yeah,
So
man.
your family's doing well, I hope. Everything's good
Yeah,
on my end, family wise. Um, this is why we do this,
yeah,
is because we're deeper than these articles of rubber and leather and the apparel that we wear. Those are just a part of our livelihoods and what allows us to tell these stories and share what it's like to be in our shoes with people who may or may not get it. Um, which in this day and age, with everything that's going on, everybody feels like to some extent they can relate to what the
Mhm.
Black and inner city experience is because of all the craziness that's going on. So to some degree, there's a small degree of empathy that we all get to talk about and share, with sneakers and apparel and everything setting the stage for us to be together. So that's why we do what we do. That's why you do what you do. I'm happy you're still doing it. I'm still doing it. I've
Yeah.
been busy with, some things I'm happy to share. Can't wait to share. And then, and we rock that until we get ready to do it again.
Yeah, man. I agree. I agree with that 100%. Sean, like, and this is something that I was going to mention anyways, like later in an interview. But like you just mentioned, right? It's a saying that you always said, and it always hit me, right? This gym, you said people over sneakers,
Yep.
and that's something that you were just really just talking about just now when it comes to that, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about us as people. As long as you're doing well, as long as your family doing well, that's what matters the most with that. So, man, it's always a treat to have you on the show, man, and definitely celebrating the 15th year anniversary, right? Definitely want to talk about that, the 15th year anniversary of OSD,
Oh,
with you and D.
it's actually, wait, we're, yeah, this is the 18th anniversary.
18, 18. Sorry about that,
Yep.
18.
No, every now and then I got to stop and think. So next year will be the 15th anniversary of social studies.
Okay.
And this year is the 18th anniversary of OSD, 2007 to
OSD.
2025.
Okay. So the 18th year, man,
Yeah,
18-year anniversary, man.
yeah,
What you and D created with OSD. I mean, I just want to talk about that, right? Because it's the 18th year anniversary
yeah.
and the creation of it. Because when you first started OSD, it wasn't nothing like that in this space at
Nope.
all.
No.
So talk about just that creation of OSD, and just pushing the culture and also preserving the history of it as well.
Well, it was Dee's harebrained scheme based on his work with Soul Collector and being frustrated by the things that were going on there. And when he left to start his movement, he had the idea for sneakers entering the podcast space and recruited me for that. Us had recently meeting through a mutual friend who since passed away. Um, who that friend would mention me to him and vice versa. And then we finally met, um, courtesy of a chance meeting at Flight Club. Shout out to Chris Vidal, one of the OGs from
Chris.
Flight Club, who we both are mutual friends with, and we would pop in to see. So when he said that I want to start a sneaker talk show, he actually tested it first. He went and did the first OSD episode on August 27th, 2007 by himself. It was like this whole 15-minute rant of like his frustration with some of the things that were going on in 2007 at the time. And it was also, just to let people know the flashpoint of it, and people will, shake their head when they hear this. But 2007, we started, was the 25th anniversary year for Air Force Ones.
Wow.
So
Wow.
the original OSD logo was the bottom footprint of an Air Force One before it evolved to what it did now. Shout out to Ridiculous. Um, but that year was a flashpoint in, like, you look at sneaker blogs and websites back then, they were all just covering Nike and Jordan and nothing else.
Yes,
And we were covering all the other stuff except Nike and Jordan because we were like, people are going to get that all day.
that is true.
So when we were on Wednesday nights from 9 to 11, people weren't even planning in-person events. That's how popular we got at one point.
Was
We owned Wednesday.
that is
No one
true.
would been planning an in-person sneaker event because they were afraid people wouldn't show up because everybody would be home listening to us.
That is true.
And it was wild back then. We had a live chat. back when the era of live chat was
Yep.
popping, which is crazy now because you can still go live on YouTube and they have a live chat, right?
That is real.
And we had a live chat that was just bonkers. That was probably the wildest virtual club ever in existence. People were posting all kind of stuff in there, fighting with each other, selling, buy, selling, trading, posting links to porn, like all kind of craziness was going on in our chat. While at the same time, we could have up to 50 people on the phone line. Imagine,
Yeah.
right? Up to
Yep.
50 people on the phone line while in the chat. So we're having to moderate phone conversation and look at the chat at the same time to sort of regulate that. It was wild, but it was myself, it was D, and we had a few other folks with us during that time.
Mhm.
So it ended up working out, but it was unbridled. It was wild. We were saying any and everything for two reasons.
Mhm.
Number one, we didn't know better. We
It
ain't
was
know better.
unfiltered. It was
Well, I'll
it was
say it was three
unfiltered.
things. Three
Yeah.
things. Three things, Al. One, we didn't know better. Two, we
Yep.
didn't give a fuck. And
That's
number
true.
three, we felt like we had every right to say whatever it is because between all of us
True.
collectively, you're talking about just between me and D alone, you're talking about 10,000 pairs of shoes over the span
Yep.
of X amount of years.
That's true.
So when you got that kind of purchasing power and nobody's been giving you anything for free, you have the right as a
You have
consumer to say whatever it is about any brand you want to say it against.
that's
And that
facts.
was us. So, the topics were, you know, endorsements, lawsuits, tech, like, and we had access to all these folks, right? Like, people didn't have access to Tinker back then. We had access
Yep.
to Tinker. They didn't have Dwayne Edwards and Jason Maiden and all these folks
That's
that we had.
true.
We had it,
That's
right? Now
real.
those guys are more accessible because the door is open to, over time treating the designers like the rock stars. But we weren't
Yep.
just only talking to the designers. We had athletes and entertainers and, folks
Hmm.
in hip hop. We had Fife on for episode 200. You know what I'm
Rest
saying?
in peace to Fife. Fife is a
Rest in peace to Fife.
I mean a
Ali
legend.
Shaheed from Tribe is still a good
Yep.
friend, like a brother to me who supports what we're doing with the Academy. Um, and Tinker was episode 198. We had him 2 episodes before,
Before.
so when you go through the roster of who we had, and at that time, we knew we were doing something that nobody else
Yeah.
was daring to do, had access to do, or even cared to do because we literally stopped consistently recording once we reached episode 365.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
our goal was you had a new show literally every single day for a year
That's
about
true.
footwear. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And then we've come back every now and then and done a couple of small ones. Earlier this year, we came back, in a small capacity, and we've done about 5 or 6 episodes that are up on YouTube now.
Yep.
But the goal was to give people a place to go where for 2 hours or however long we were on, because that was the other thing. We really didn't, even though we had a 2 hour time slot, there was times we would go on for 3 and 4 and 5 hours. And it was just our space. And people knew that it belonged to them. So they were
Yep.
happy to be a part of it. And they could say whatever they wanted to say. And if they weren't in the place to say it, we kind of represented that voice for them. We were sort of like the congressmen and assemblymen, if you will, for the sneaker community because we
Yep.
were saying things on their behalf that they didn't have the opportunity to say.
That is
So
true.
it was fun for us in that regard. And I think and then it was also a tech evolution because, like I said, it
Yep.
was a phone line with 50 people, a chat room with up to 200, which sometimes I feel like we really pushed that limit.
Yep.
You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? But the tech evolution led to, okay, if you know us personally and you see us out in all the cities where we're from, you
Yep.
know, D was up in Massachusetts at the time, me, New York, Fee, New York, some of, Anita Heat, Georgia, other people across ridiculous in Nebraska. Like, if you knew us in our cities, then, you knew who we were. But on the global scale, we had no facial recognition. We just had like voice
Yep.
recognition from the show.
Yep.
So when we moved into video, when Google approached us and was like, we're starting this new thing called Hangouts, We want you guys on your show to come test it out over here. We were like, all right, great.
Mm.
So now everybody will match the faces to the voices who are on here. Because at that point, we were on like 2.5 years.
Yep.
Everybody could see who these people are who every week are talking this shit and don't
Yep.
really care. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
that was a fun evolution because tech now allowed us to do what we're doing right now.
Yep.
And what I noticed at that time and what we noticed at that time was it's sort of democratized now, which was the
Mm.
gift and the curse. Everybody jumping in and wanting now to start a podcast.
Everyone. That is
And
true.
they starting them for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
Everybody was on this thing at one point when you start talking about the 2010s and even up to, I would even go as far as to say up to like 2018, 2019. There was
Fact.
so many people starting podcasts for the wrong reasons. They want
Yep.
Nike and Jordan to notice them so that they can get free shoes. They want to
So,
get seated. They want to go to the events and the parties. We didn't care about none of that.
yep.
We knew who we knew. If we got invited somewhere, that's cool. We show up if time permit. Because again, we were family people. We married. We got kids. We got jobs, good jobs at that.
Yep.
And we don't have to be where we don't have to be. So
Mm.
we never really tripped on those little perks that other people saw as making it in the sneaker industry. Because
Yep.
at the end of the day, you're not. Because if you're not at a table making a decision about anything and you're not being paid to
Mm.
contribute in some way, shape, or form professionally to the
Mm.
sneaker industry, none of the
That's
other
true.
shit mattered. You know what I mean? So
That's real. That's real with that, Sean.
so
And
that was the evolution for us. But then we started seeing people jump in, and the motivation was just to talk about Nike and Jordan all the time, and they just want free sneakers. And
yep.
then they're starting to talk about a bunch of this like really ratchet stuff, gossiping about other people in sneakers and saying all this
Hmm.
derogatory stuff about other people in the community. And we were like, look, we're not prevailing in this space anymore. It's reaching the point where we're one of the voices and not the voice. So that was
Mm.
when we shut it down and we started looking for other means to express ourselves. So, the work that we've done with social studies has continued that mission.
Yep.
Our motto of appreciate, educate, elevate is in full swing there.
Hmm.
We've never laid off of that. Again, 14 years this year. This is the 14th year of that. But we saw by 2018, 2019, we just saw that there were too many people doing it for the wrong reasons. So we fell back off it, which is why we celebrate folks like you who have been
Yep.
consistently going and doing it with the pure intentions. You're not asking nobody, yo,
Yep.
Nike, hit me up. I want them
Yep.
J's.
That's so true.
You
That's so
don't do
true.
any of that,
Never that.
and the folks that you talk to people who got some real shit to say, who
Yep.
represent the culture musically, fashion wise, footwear wise, who, are genuine in their space. And I think that we need more of that back. Um, but technology has allowed for, still too many people to be in a space. You got TikTok, you got Facebook Live,
Yep.
you got Instagram, you got LinkedIn Live now. And there's so many other platforms where people are democratized to jump on and they're not always right,
Yeah.
and I've had to catch myself quite a lot where every now and then if something's too preposterous, I'll jump on and have to check somebody
Yeah.
because I'm not doing my job as who I am in my place in
Yep.
this industry. If I see some shit that's just really preposterous and I let it rock,
Mhm.
I can't do that.
That's
You
real.
know, it's sort of like a doctor who has a Hippocratic oath, right? Like
Yep.
you need to do something. Like you sworn to do something. But there's
Yep.
still so much misinformation and lack of journalistic integrity. And
Yeah.
even that's always been prevailing, the lack of journalistic integrity, because
Agree.
people used to steal stuff that they would hear on our show and go and write it on
Yep.
their site like it was
They
news
sure
given to
did.
them.
Yep.
They used to, like, sneaker news used to steal shit. Complex used to get shit wrong, because they still get shit wrong.
Yep. They do.
Complex is complex, and
They
they
do.
know it's no love lost with them. I don't really give a shit about what they do or say.
Yep.
Um, but people used to literally listen to the show because you could hide in the shadows back then. Remember, you could log on and not say your name or anything like how now. and people would listen to, some of the scoops that we would drop, and
Hmm.
people that would come on as guests and hear things, and then go and write it on their blog and their website and act like it was, breaking news for them.
That's
Sneaker
so
news used
true.
to do that shit a lot. It used to get
Yep.
under my oil my britches, bro. Like, they used to do it a lot. Complex was always off base
Yes.
and inauthentic, and like it was so many sneaker files and so many other sites. Like, I've had images of sneakers stolen. Like, I would post, and like literally, like, I'll give you a prime example. Do you remember the Reebok pump, that the Shack Attack that came out, that was gray, red, and black, and it was called the Brick City pump?
Yeah, I remember the Brick City Prompts. I remember those joints.
That one that was with, it was a shoe that was a tribute to Redman's album, but Shaq is also from Newark, so that's why I did
Yep.
that. So the pictures circulated years ago. I took a picture of the shoe on my desk in my office at Madison Square Garden. It was the sample sent to me. The shoe
Mm.
didn't have a name. It had no name. I called it the Brick City Pump. I was like, the dude who hit me at Reebok and said, I was like, yo, these shit. So when I posted, these are the Brick City Pumps
Mm.
sitting on my desk. You can still Google now, and the first image of them shits pop up. It's the sample sneaker on my desk in my office at Madison Square Garden. All these sites ran with it, talking about this is the release date, this is the price. It's called the what? How?
Like
How?
how? Yes.
So we were so authentic and genuine, and with no agenda, and no hidden agenda, and no cloud chasing. When we had information, we shared it. When we
Yes.
had an opinion, we didn't hold back. If we had guests on and they had valuable knowledge to share, we gave them the floor to do it. We didn't do that thing like certain podcast hosts and stuff now, where every 3 sentences you interrupt the host. You
Yes. They
interrupt the
don't let them
guest.
talk.
You interrupt the guest, rather. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
people will jump right in before the person gets to finish their story, and they just, oh, we mastered early. Again, my background
That's
is
so true.
TV production, and through the grace of God, working on OSD, I learned how to be a good host, and put together podcasts and stuff. So I knew what questions to add. It took me 3 weeks to put together those questions from when Tinker was on.
Man, that was a classic episode, by the way, with Tinker.
Our most
Classic.
our most downloaded episode. That
Yes.
episode had over 800,000 audio downloads by
And
itself.
Tinker don't talk a lot. He don't do interviews.
Well, back then he didn't. He
He
didn't
didn't
do
do
a lot.
that was the first interview I seen with Tinker, like on screen. Like the first one. That
Well,
was so
he
shocking.
had done a lot of interviews in person at events for people, where he would be recorded, sound bites and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But that was, and there was the other thing too. So I'm gonna refresh your memory on it. That was one of the last audio episodes. There is no
Mhm.
video of us doing Tinker on
Video.
OSD.
Okay.
It's audio, but it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Nobody ever spoke to him that long. So when we put those questions together, it took me 3 weeks to put them together and then disseminate them to the crew, saying, you're going to ask this one, you're going to ask that one.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of like hardball questions in there that I wanted to ask, in particular, the one about the Sports Illustrated cover and finding
Yeah.
out that people were getting killed for Jordans.
Yeah. That
You
was
know,
a crazy
so
cover.
we always set the stage for our guests to have their say, share their story with little to no interruption, because we know that you're not talking to us at the end of the day. You're talking to the people that listen and watch us.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a
So
good
we
point.
were able to master that early, which got us into the spaces that we got into. Now, based on the numbers that we did
Hmm.
in today's podcast game, we should be millionaires. But there was no mechanism for compensation for podcasts like that exists. The numbers we were doing back then are better than a lot of people's podcasts who's making millions right now.
It is. And the content was great as well to go along with that. It wasn't clickbait.
Right.
And It wasn't clickbait at all. And that was something, Sean, when I first seen, I didn't know what it was at first, because it was a podcast, but it was something I'd never seen before or heard before with the audio. And I
Yep.
stumbled upon on it when I was in college. I believe I was a sophomore year in college, and stumbled upon it, and I was like, this is amazing. And I never seen no one in this space, but now it's so many different podcasts just in general. That was the first podcast I ever seen in my life. So now seeing so many people doing podcasts, especially podcasts in the sneaker space,
Hmm.
because a lot of people didn't really understand it, right? I feel like it was like a closed community back in those days during the blog era.
Right.
You had Nike Talk and stuff of that nature. So people didn't really understand it at all. So now you see so many different sneaker podcasts and stuff of that nature. And I mean, and you were just speaking about it, like a lot of people intentions is not genuine when it comes to
Right.
that, right? And people just want free apparel or just want to get that look or whatever. So when you was doing in the beginning with you and D Well, did you ever think it would get this big just in general? Because you all have influenced so many people, like myself included. So it gave me confidence to start creating content around sneakers.
Right.
Um, did you all think it was get this big? And like and also do a lot of work in the background as well, like consulting for other sneaker companies and other creators.
So the popularity of the podcast is what gave birth to the consulting,
Yeah.
because people were listening at the brands to our show just to realize how they should be doing their job. And brand people at the brands were literally telling us that. And then we had brands that were scared to literally come on the show. The one brand that's running things now and doing great was scared to come on OSD. We never had a guest from the brand on, was New Balance. Because behind the scenes, people from New Balance used to tell us, you're going to ask us something that we're not ready to answer and it's going to make us look bad. So we're going to
Mhm.
respectfully decline. So no one from New Balance has ever been on the show.
That's
People that have worked for New Balance in the past have been on the show, but
yeah.
actively while they work for New Balance, people have not been on the show because New Balance was simply not ready. Like if we asked them certain questions about the way they marketed certain products, or um, why they weren't introducing back then new silhouettes. Now they're cranking out new silhouettes like Oprah when she giving away shit to her audience.
They really are. They
You
flooding
got
the market right
740s, you
now.
got 530s, you got 327s, you got all of this. Back in the
990.
days when we were on, you couldn't um get a new silhouette for New Balance that wasn't part of the classic line.
Yes.
So, some of those things they weren't willing to answer. So the genuine nature of the way we did the show and a level of fear that we put in brands, but then at the same time they were hitting us behind the scenes, we
Hmm.
knew we had something that
Yep.
was going to compensate us, not necessarily in the podcast realm, but as respected professionals in the business.
Mm.
And through those experiences, going to work with those brands, that was when we realized social studies was necessary, because we're going out there and we're not seeing no people of color. We're not seeing no women.
Mm. Yep.
We're seeing
Yep.
the same demographic of employee at every single company that's hiring us for consulting.
That's
So
real.
that was when we decided to, take up that responsibility after taking up the podcast responsibility. Because like we did it before, we can do it again, and we can do something, of the greater good. Because if somebody doesn't shake this tree, the fruit doesn't fall.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
the game still lacks diversity that's necessary, but it's more diverse now than it's ever been. But
Yes.
that's because of the efforts of folks like Dr. D. Wayne Edwards, me,
Yeah.
and D.
Yes, sir.
And
Yeah.
you know, we see professionally the efforts being taken to address it. It's still a
Yeah.
long way to go, but professionally, yes, the efforts are being made. Companies are starting to meet you halfway in some instances. But in the podcast space, we knew we had opened the door to something, but also with the advancement of technology, the IGs, the Facebooks, the TikToks, the everything, we knew that there was not going to be a high barrier to entry for anyone. So
Mm.
Now anybody with a smartphone and a closet full of sneakers can go live and start talking shit.
Yep.
And that's literally what started happening with, YouTube videos and IG lives and everything else that came up. So it was
Yep.
a gift and a curse
Definitely.
of what we created back in '07, which we were realistic about knowing that because we always wanted to be 10 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Because you've been around us long enough to remember when we started the first 24/7 digital sneaker network called OSD
Yes.
TV.
That's true. That's true. I remember that. That was another one that was one of its kind. That
So
really was.
we always tried to stay way ahead of
Yes. That's
what
so true.
we knew people will eventually catch up to. So the thing that was always going to come where people going to jump in and be trendy and clout chase and all of those things. But there's very few, like I said when we first came on, there's very few that represent the authenticity that we kicked in the door with. There's you, there's Hassan from My First Kicks.
Yes.
There's Rashawn and Caesar, African Caesar
Oh
and
man.
Bosick and them, Sneaker
Yes.
Box, who, they
Thinking
always
about
show us love.
always.
Hassan always show us love. And that's not any disrespect to anybody I'm not naming, but those two in particular, like I feel at home with them. Like they're
Yes.
continuing the legacy of what we started in addition to you. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yep.
So,
That's true. That is true.
but we can't stop anybody else who got a closet full of sneakers and a smartphone with a good internet connection from jumping in and doing what they want to do.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
good point.
I listen to some stuff, I pop on and I listen to stuff and I'm like, all right, I'm going to get off now because I see where this is going.
Yeah. Me
You know,
too.
I
Me
do
too.
because I'm still a fan of the content creation era because
Yeah.
my background is TV production and stuff. I did years working for MTV and Sirius XM and Fuse TV and so I'm never going to shy away from this era of people creating content and telling their story. But I feel like the next level, which is one that we're on, and I'm sorry if I'm answering all these questions without you being able to answer them, but
No, no, go
I think
ahead. Go
I,
ahead. This is
I,
good information, Sean.
I think you knew I was going to do that.
This is good information, Sean. Like we need this because I think this is something that you mentioned as well in the past. Another gem, you always say that if we disagree with something, right, or we don't like something being played out, create your own story and people
Yeah.
getting to hear your story because like I say all the time when people ask me like what was my influences far as with getting in this space when it comes to entertainment and merging sneakers, I always say like always D, always say U and D. I think when it comes to just the knowledge and just preserving the history as well and also doing work in the community, like you and D, like y'all paved the way for so many of us in this game, like from designers, from people that's doing work behind the scene, for people that want to do podcasts and stuff of that nature, right? Or just talk about sneakers, like the genuine talk of it, right? And bringing people together. Like, I think it's important. And also when it comes to podcasts,
Mhm.
like this, that was the first podcast I seen. OSD, Combat Jack. You know, you all like that was the first, and this made it believable for me. Like, okay, I could do something like this. I could do something like this. Because I wasn't the person that was, wanted to be in front of the camera, but watching your shows and talking about the actual culture, it molded my company, Grails Inc. and Yo, it's the Kicks as well. So definitely like it's so much knowledge that you have and something that I want to talk about, something that I don't see in the industry is what you indeed always believe in the next generation. Like you always was willing to assist and help the next person. Like really was. Like I reached out to you all when you all respond back. I was like, oh snap, hey, and it started a relationship, and
Yep.
that's something I'm grateful for. But talk about that. What makes you want to help out like the next generation? Because it's gatekeeping. That does happen. I feel like at times, especially for people of color as well. So talk about that inspiring so many people because I know you connected me with Christopher Dixon. Shout out
Mhm.
to Christopher Dixon. You connected me with him and so many other individuals as well. So talk about that aspect, just helping the next generation.
Gatekeeping is still going on. We know it. Um, and it's for the very same reason that social studies exists with regard to more women and people of color working in the industry. On this other social currency side, where there's podcasts and blogs and websites, there's people who get their little connect and they get a couple of free pairs of shoes and get invited to a couple of parties. And now they shit don't stink.
Yep.
They don't care about anybody else. They feel like
Yep.
they made it. Excuse me, which is very short sighted. Um, you and I met and I got connected to you when you started showing me your film content,
Yep.
right? Now, here's
Yep.
one for you that I'm going to share with you that's going to knock your socks off. Over the last 3 years, you've seen all the video shorts and stuff that I've been posting
Yep.
with sneaker brands and all of that.
Hmm.
You're one of the people who back in the days inspired my thought that that was possible.
Wow. 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 Hey, and that means a lot.
because
That means a lot.
because we were in the zone of constant live content creation, the podcast, produce it, get the guests, get the time, like the run a show and everything that I put together all that time for 7 years. That was a job in itself that I was doing on top of raising a family and having a
Mhm.
regular job, which thankfully it was still tied into my love and passion.
Mhm.
Working in sports and TV production and stuff, I was never far removed from kicks ever, like literally never.
Mhm.
So being able to stay in that lane and do all of that. And it wasn't until 3, 4 years ago where I'm like, what is the next level of expression that we could use to tell some of these stories for even these independent brands? I've done a lot of shorts and stuff for independent brands. And that thought process behind doing that goes back to how you and I first met when you
Yep.
produced those two films, and I was like, "Yo,
Mhm.
all right."
Yeah.
I was like, "You took it there."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, he took it there. He
Yeah.
straight produced and this is before sure, Just for Kicks
Yes,
was out.
before.
That came out
Yep.
2005. That was
Yep.
out, but nobody was putting a cinematic spin on telling the sneaker narrative.
Yep.
You did that for us and showed me that. So that seed was planted years ago that I've now over the last 3 or 4 years started learning. I've learned how to shoot and edit and do all of those things on my own. I've produced a lot of content video wise over the last couple of years.
Yep.
And back to the point of gatekeeping is the independent brands. The independent brands don't get the marketing muscle and everything that the big brands get. The big
Yep.
brands got the budget to hire creative agencies or pay an influencer and all of that. So, I started doing work for independent brands just like, yo, send me the shoes. If I like them, I'll
Yep.
produce something for you. And I've been doing that just off the strength of you sent me something that was made independently that's fucking dope. And the narrative needs to be amplified on this. So I've done that.
Yep. Yep.
Um, in the podcast space, talking to Rashawn on a regular, talking to you, talking to
Yep.
Hassan and some of the other folks, mentoring designers around the world when they hit
Yep.
me like, what should I be doing here? What's my approach to this? Look at these sketches. What do you see is wrong with these? Like, you know, I'm never going to stop doing that because that was the very reason we decided to start the podcast in the first place was to give people a place to be themselves and be comfortable, you know?
Mhm.
So the gatekeeping that's going on is because of a whole lot of people who are so happy to be put on now and they're getting their props because they get to go to the little parties and get free
Yep.
shoes and press bags and some of this shit that they go to they got to take the shoes off and give them back
Yes, that's crazy. That's crazy. When you
after the
think
after
about
the whole media experience and everything else that's been
oh
documented and everybody's doing the content. The brand is like, okay, put them back in the box, thanks.
that's crazy when you think about that, Sean. That's mind blowing. That's mind blowing to me. So that's Yo, oh my goodness. Like, yo, that's ridiculous right now. That the era that we are in right now. That's craziness when you think about it, Sean. In
But
a
but
no
that's what people are willing to do. They're willing to take a paid trip, a hotel, a meal to go out there and do somebody else's work for their brand, and then get kicked back out on the street per se. Because at the end of the day, why did you really do this? You wanted to do it for the kicks, right?
yep,
So
yep,
imagine being told at the end of the night, all right, the main thing that you wanted out of this, the kicks, and maybe a little bit of bread or whatever,
hmm
but kicks is a part of that. You wanted the kicks. You
yep,
can't have them.
yep. Yeah, that's craziness to me. That's craziness to me, Sean. And something that I just want to add on, like just what we were just talking about, and just you inspiring just the next generation, always helping out. Oh, I have a story too. So
Uh huh.
sneaker week, the
Yep.
first sneaker week that took place in Portland, Oregon. I don't know if you remember this, but you told me about it. You
Mhm.
told me about it. It's like, hey, you need to enter into this. They actually have a film contest revolving around sneakers. It was like this will be good for you. And I entered into it, and I won. I won the contest. Won the contest, and got introduced to Herbert,
Yep.
who's actually running the sneaker week, and it's still going on right now in
Yep.
Portland. Was
Yep.
able to go to the Pensole Academy. Was able to visit Nike, but I just say all that to say because of what you mentioned to me. You was like, hey man, because you were doing work behind the scenes for it. And without you telling me that, I wouldn't known about it and wouldn't been able to meet different people as well, in the industry during that time frame and be able to go to Portland. So that's something that I'm forever grateful for. That's stuff that I feel like that's so important, in the industry as well, right? So I'm going to share that story real quick, Sean. That's something that I'm forever grateful for. So when it comes to
Now I remember when you sent me the
yeah,
content for that too. Now I'm thinking back. That was and shout out
yeah,
to Herbert. And they just wrapped up
yes,
a
they
sneaker week
did.
last week where they honored Wilson. Um, and I was just with Wilson on July 23rd in DC. We both were in
Yes,
DC. We Wilson actually did a keynote address for Congress, and I did a sneaker exhibition in Capitol Hill for Congress that day for
yes,
Congressional Sneaker Day. So, you know, like the levels that we've been able to get to through just being genuine and authentic, you know, we've done sneaker exhibitions for the last 12 years that have been seen by over 12 million
yes,
people. But never in my wildest dreams would I ever think that I'd get a call saying, could you do this on Capitol Hill for Congress on Congressional Sneaker Day? We need this as part of the narrative that we're trying to show them about the importance of reducing tariffs or getting an exemption because of how important these things are to people and how these things are
yeah,
going to hurt. So, even that level is a new level
new level.
of professional work in the industry that now is tied into the
Mhm.
politics of the industry. It was incredible that I was called for that. And to see Wilson, the first black designer,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
with me doing his keynote, talking about his work with Scotty and Andre Agassi and Serena Williams here, US Open is here now.
yeah,
So that level of exposure to people to share what this is all about to us and how meaningful it is why I'm going to continue to always like take that time, even if it's, an email exchange, a DM or something with someone who reaches out, because those little moments matter.
yeah,
Like you just, highlight it for yourself personally. Um, the one thing I'm not going to do is I'm always going to continue to explore new ways to express what the sneaker
yeah,
experience is. So, I say that to say, we're looking into, short
hmm
films now. Um, we're looking into doing more video content that is tied into
yeah,
tech. We're going to be rolling out a 3D printed sneaker program at the academy.
mhm,
So we're looking to evolve um, again and to embrace technology and push into the future
yeah,
and not rest on our laurels. Why?
yes.
You know?
And something that you mentioned as well, Sean, that doing work with the academy and also in the community. And I want you to discuss more like when it comes to social studies. I mean, that's
Yep,
really dope. Like what you all been creating and been pushing with social studies is a wealth of knowledge. Like I learned something new with your reels that you create, with the videos that you create, the events that you put together. Talk more about that with that creation because I feel like that is an evolution of what OSD is as well. Yeah.
absolutely. It is absolutely the evolution of what started as OSD, because it continues the mantra, appreciate, educate, elevate. Everyone who takes a social studies course at the end of it, you got a new
Hmm.
appreciation, you've been educated, and if you're motivated enough, now you
Hmm.
jump in to elevate this thing we love so much by contributing the best way that you can. So, um, being able to open the academy as we did 2 years ago, where we have our own freestanding community space, was a
Hmm.
dream that started in 2018 that was finally realized in 2023. And that opened up the possibilities for us to expand our curriculum. We do IP now, we teach Web3. Um, I was just on the phone today with my dude Bobito Garcia, who we're eternally
Yeah.
grateful to for even creating what
Bobito.
we now know in this current form. Bobito is the reason there is a
Yes,
sneaker
that
culture.
is.
Period. And Bob came and took a class and taught a class with us last year called the Park Player Perspective about the history of outdoor basketball.
Mhm.
I taught a master class, a 1 day master class with DJ Red Alert. Like, we've been able to do things with the opening of the academy to expand, um, the educational offerings into spaces that tie directly back into
Yes.
sneakers. Red is a
Amazing.
pioneer, almost 50 years on radio
Yes.
right now. Um, Fashion icon, if
Yeah,
you will, for the
you're
time.
right.
Um, you know, Groundbreaking records for artists who we end up seeing visually. Um,
Me, yeah,
Bob, with everything that he's done,
you're right. You're right.
to be able to do those things with those people under the umbrella of education for people has been incredible. Um, Even right now, with what we rolled out earlier this year, we now have what's called social studies strictly for the
Yes, yes,
ladies.
empowering the women.
So
Yeah.
that's our first time offering an all woman educational experience taught by
Yep.
a woman without any male energy there. You know what I'm saying? So we've been able to finally convince one of our very talented female alums that we've had over the last 14
Hmm.
years to step up and actually teach a course in our
Yep.
place. So that rolled out March of this year. We've done a couple of cohorts. We had, excuse me, we had some sponsorship, but a sponsor did something really
Hmm.
dirty to us and backed out midstream. But we believe so much in the program that we now have a
Yep.
GoFundMe campaign running to continue to raise funds so that we don't have to cut that program because of how impactful
That's
it's
great.
already been with two cohorts in. Um, we see it as something that, from the woman's perspective, was something we should have done, number one, a long time ago. And number two, we can't take our foot off the
Yes.
gas because we see how many women need it.
Mhm.
We've had women register for this course from as far away as London and South Africa.
That's a blessing right there. And and that's some Sean, like, not only you help the next generation, but also you give flowers to legends like DJ Red Alert, the masterclass experience. I remember you and DJ Red Alert went live on Instagram. That was a great segment, by the way, describing it. Then also, Bobito, like you show love to the pioneers. And that's something that you really don't see that much. And that's something that's really great because when you
No,
think about someone like a Red Alert, I think about not only just a pioneer in radio, but a pioneer with discovering acts. When you think about the native tongues, if I'm not mistaken, Red Alert discovered the native tongues, right? Like,
yeah,
big creation of tribe and all those acts, right? And that spearhead another movement. So when you think about Red Place, it's really amazing. And also when you think about Bob Vito, one of the first, sneaker shows that was on television. He had to deal with ESPN, on It's Gotta Be the Shoes. Like, and all he have done in basketball as well, and combining those two worlds, like so. I love how you all push that and show love to the people that came before us that helped pave the way, and also to the women, like you just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Empowering the women. Like when I heard about that program, that is so great, and that's something that you always been about, and it's something that you mentioned as well. Like they are a big part of the what we do, right? When you think about sneakers, you think about how it just took off. It wouldn't be possible without women. And I love how you always mention that and champion that as well, because I don't really see that in a lot of spaces, like on the websites, even in different podcasts. You don't see a lot of women guests on there on those platforms, and also talking about pushing the empowering of it. So man, that's huge. That's huge, man. And speak a little more about that, because I know you just was talking about it, but man, talk about what made you just want to really, create that class for women. When it comes to bringing those best of both worlds together.
So, like I said, we've had over 14 years some really strong and powerful women who are now working in the industry
Hmm.
that got their start through social studies classes and went on to either jump right in professionally, create their own brand, or go, chase their passion for design, or,
Hmm.
whatever the case was. We've been the entry point for a lot of women honing their craft and taking charge of their journey into footwear. And it's always been in combination with a male audience, which, excuse me, because sneakers is such a male dominated thing, both professionally and on the social cultural side. um, Women feel the need sometimes to shrink themselves down,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I would see it. And we were never able to convince anyone that they had what it takes to literally teach. We had people literally like, we can't do that. You guys do
Hmm.
that. How are we going to take y'all place? And, while that's flattering that people feel like we are the standard for teaching the business and culture of sneakers, our viewpoint is, but we taught you everything you need to know so that this could be you one day. Um, I'm 53 years old, so I think about things from a space of next generation more so now than I've ever done. I got two kids who are in their 20s. So for me, I'm always thinking about, all right, so what happens to this work if D and I can't do it anymore?
Hmm. Yeah,
Right. So
that's powerful.
to finally be able to have someone that was confident enough to take the mantle of what we're teaching and sit down in a comfortable space, which is around women like
Yeah.
her, and teach it to these women with the same level of authenticity and dedication that we would, it was only right that, it finally came to be. Everything happens in due time the way it's supposed to, but we finally found in our teacher, Janine Bailey Allen, shout out to Janine. um, she was like, yeah, okay, sure, I got this. You need to sit in with me on the first one, but I got this. So that's exactly what happened. But in between that, there was the politics of Trump's tariffs and a bunch of, for lack of a better way to say this, really shady partners who acted like they believed in it for it being such a groundbreaking
Hmm.
initiative, but then pulled the plug on it right before we were getting ready to really get moving. And I didn't want that to be how the story ended. I didn't want that to be, well, because of that, this really cool thing we were doing for women has to never happen again. So we just decided to reach out to the village
Hmm.
and continue to do what we can. We know money's tight for everybody, but you know, we're trying to
Hmm.
raise $10,000 to keep the program
Hmm.
going, and we're at 25% of that. So the more people that hear this, see the promotion, folks like
Yeah.
you spreading the word, those little $5 and $10
Add up.
add up if enough people come together to help us reach the goal. So the interesting thing about what we're doing is for anyone that donates $500 or more, you get a private custom sneaker design session with
Mm,
me.
yeah, like that.
So for being a $500 donor, you're going to get your own custom shoes out of it. But here's the thing that we've been doing for every single person that
Mhm.
donates. Every single person, regardless of dollar amount that donates, and check your email
Yep,
because
I
you
got
got
this.
this too.
I
I
didn't
don't know if you
see
saw
it.
it yet. But every single person that donates, regardless of dollar amount, you get a free e-course from us, and you get a social studies phone screen image for your
Yep,
phone.
I like that.
Everyone,
Everyone.
regardless of the dollar amount. So you're getting a class from us, regardless of what you
Yep,
donate. So we're giving even while you're giving.
I love that. I love
You know what I'm
that.
saying?
Like you said, the village is definitely always going to support, and that's something that's very powerful because Sean, I spoke with different women and creators in this space, and they talk about how different brands call on them for focus groups, get their ideas. The next thing they know, those ideals is being created
Hmm.
basically just using them. Like have a whole focus group of different women from different, creators in the sneaker space, fashion world, get their ideas. The next thing you know,
Hmm.
they implement it. Other people's
Yep.
implemented. Usually men is implemented. And the focus groups
Mhm.
is men running the focus group. So it's like, so seeing what you're doing is really great because you really empowering it and letting them know about this what could potentially happen as well, right? Like that happens in the industry, which I didn't know about until I had different women that was on my podcast. They were telling me about it, telling me about what's going on and how hard it is, and how hard it is just for example, just to get sneakers, and hard it is for lack of diversity, right? Lack of diversity for a lot of women in the sneaker industry as well. So I love what you're doing, what you pushing with that well when it comes to that space. I think that's very important.
I see so much happening to women in the space on both sides,
Mhm.
right? Which is another motivating factor for this. On the corporate side, I see women who are in and still not being valued for their voice at the table in these companies.
Yep.
And then on the other side, the lovers, wearers, collectors, influencers, whatever, I see enough of them that aren't seeing the banana in the tailpipe. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? In terms of you've been invited to a nice event and they're not realizing that they get in those rooms and they're having these conversations, not realizing that they're giving up
Yep.
ideas
Yep.
and giving up IP just by saying what it is they do and how they
Yep.
do it. We felt it was necessary for, you know, the strictly for the ladies class to happen
Agree.
where, and that's one of the things that we've seen in a couple of cohorts that we've already ran, you know, they're comfortable enough to talk to each other about the bullshit that's going on. And to a degree, they're in their own circle teaching other women in their circle what to
Yeah.
watch out for.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that was something that was important to set the stage for too, because,
Yeah.
you know, hearing it from a man is
Hmm.
cool, especially in the capacity of myself, indeed, because we don't have any
Yep.
agenda to it. But to set the stage for women to be in that space, similar to OSD, where no matter what you're doing, you washing dishes, you're feeding a kid, you cooking dinner, whatever it is you're doing as a woman at home, you're in a room or in a space, physically, virtually, whatever, where there are a bunch of people who can literally, in real time, relate to what you go through every day. And you guys are having an exchange of information, but at the same time, you're collectively learning
Yep.
about the industry. A man being the head of that changes the potential for that. By me being the teacher, that
Yeah.
changes that because, you know, If a woman wants to sit on and she's got to breastfeed her baby while she's on, she can't do that with me
Yeah,
on.
yeah, that's
You know what I'm
real.
saying? If a woman is washing dishes, she don't want to do that with
Yeah,
me on. Because
that's real.
so being free in that space to be exactly who you are as a woman with other like-minded women, but you're learning about this thing that you all know and love, and either you want to get into, or like I said, there were women who've been taking the cohort so far that already work
Yeah,
for brands that were in some of these cohorts too. And they were like, look, let me tell y'all something.
yeah, yes, yes, yeah.
But you got to be able to set the stage for
Hey,
those conversations to
yeah,
happen. And they're not going to happen all the time
yeah,
with a
that's
man
true.
there. So we hold a lot of pride in being able to establish that. And we're fighting very hard to keep it going. Still pushing to get sponsors. But again, we're still leaning on the village to help us reach that goal of 10,000 so that we can get the next cohort going and continue to push forward. Um, in March, when we launched this campaign, 49 women signed up in less than a week.
And that's
49.
worldwide too. So, like you mentioned, we had
That's
worldwide.
worldwide.
So that's amazing.
And we've made it through a fraction of that already, a decent fraction of that, but we still got 2/3 of the way to go, which is why we need the funding to keep the cohorts going and still have conversations with other people to come in and sponsor. So that's the
Mhm.
importance of the GoFundMe. It's why you see me doing the videos with updates and
Yeah,
all the things that I've been doing. You'll see Janine doing some, you'll see Dee doing some.
hmm,
We're pushing to keep this going because of how much we know it's going to mean to a
yeah,
lot of
it
women.
is.
And even women who are working professionally in the game who aren't
Yep.
taking the course. Tasha Kwan from Her
Man,
Grails. She's out here doing
shout
her
out
thing.
Tasha.
She goes. Shout out to
Man,
Tasha. She goes through the
yes,
bullshit.
she
It's
does.
like you know, there there pe- there are women out here who have
They
stories to
do.
tell and can share that. We put that in the space. Shout out to Nicole from Soul
Yes.
Wash. She was a guest teacher and a student in one of the
Shout out to
cohorts.
Nicole.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, so, I see a lot of value in what a lot of women in the space are doing. It's a lot of them, too many to name in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form, you know. But then there's a lot of women I see, and I'm not gonna call them out either, but there's a lot of women who's out here doing bullshit
Yes.
too, you know. And I think that hurts the cause as
Yeah.
well in terms of, you know, women having hidden agendas and using other women,
Yep.
stealing some of their ideas and, their IP and trying to do it their own way. And, there's a lot of talk, but, you know, I wanted to create the space where women can authentically have the best possible education and empowerment and journey in the forward industry that we could do. So that's what social studies strictly for the ladies is. And like I said, I'm not there minimally. I'm not there. I leave it up to the women to do their thing because they
Yes.
have to. It's
Yes.
it's for them, and I'm going to support however, whenever. But I don't want to be in a space where they're going to say, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have been able to do this. And no, I'm setting the table. I'm giving you the
Yep.
tools. You know, there's buy someone a fish meal, or there's teach someone to
Yep.
fish, right? And I'm teaching people to fish so that it's them who's doing the work because it's still very necessary. Here we are. I'm 20 plus years working professionally in sneakers, and some of these same problems
Yes.
still
Still
exist.
assist.
Um, I'm 40 years in as a lover, wear, and collector since 13, and I'm 53. So, even on that side, like some of the stuff that I see that people are bugging out here doing, I'm like, you know what? I'll sit back and just take a
Yeah.
deep breath.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, you know what, Sean? I be having to do that a lot because a lot of foolishness that I be seeing, and like just right now, just stuff that I feel like a lot of clickbait. I'll just be like, oh,
Yeah,
you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to just, relax. I'm going to relax. But definitely, shout out Tasha Kwan from her Grail. She was on the show and before, and what
Yeah,
she's doing is really amazing. Her and Wendy Franklin as well. Shout out to Wendy Franklin, Wendella,
yeah,
Melissa Chanel as well,
yep,
who've been doing a lot of dope stuff. So
yep,
many of them is doing a lot of great stuff. But I think like what you mentioned, like doing the spotlight on that. So I wanted to talk in depth about that because I really love that. And something as well, Sean, that another gem that you inspire me like, and you always go back to the community. You always, really, want to share those stories. Like I remember, if I'm not mistaken, like you was doing like a documentary at one point. I think it was like a museum, like a sneaker museum at one point. I forgot what it was specifically, but I remember seeing it like on your page. I forgot it was like on the news, and you posted it like a couple of years ago. But
mhm,
seeing stuff like that, right, is really dope, and that inspired me as well. As far as like, okay, I need to use like the gifts that I have, but also make sure I give back and also influence another generation as well. So I know my brother, shout out to my brother Dre McFly, him and his homie, he's like a big bro as well to me. CJ, shout out to CJ, DJ
mhm,
CeeLo, but a nonprofit group in Tennessee called Kicks for Grades, where they give back kicks
yeah,
to kids who do good in school. And seeing that, I was like, man, this is really, really great. And you know, seeing how people are able to give back through sneakers is really great because I feel like we don't hear those stories a lot, right? We hear
mhm,
the negative stories because it does happen. But it's a lot of great work, that positive work that people do in the community through sneakers.
yep.
You know, um, and I feel like you always had a big impact on that aspect of shining those positive stories in the culture.
So I love to set the table for the conversations about the industry.
Hmm.
And the best way that we've been able to do that over the last even decade plus, in combination with social studies, has been doing sneaker exhibitions.
Yeah, the sneaker exhibitions, yes.
So the first one being 2013 when we worked with Bada in Toronto on the Rise of Sneaker Culture exhibition. And then that ended up going to Brooklyn in 2015 for the Brooklyn
Yeah.
Museum. And we've
Yep.
done countless other exhibitions. I've done exhibitions in college campuses and, you know,
Spoke you
all
you
over.
you taught a class at Drexel, if I'm not mistaken, right, Sean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, teaching like a class at Drexel. That was amazing just to see, just like you mentioned, starting with OSD and seeing that come into fruition. Like you teaching
Mhm.
a class about the industry. That was amazing. I just had to mention that right there for the people. Like
No, that
that
one,
was
that was fun in that everything that led to that opportunity. An exhibition led to that opportunity.
awesome.
I was doing an exhibition at a trade show that doesn't exist anymore called Capsule.
Okay.
So at that exhibition, on the very last day, there was a professor, senior tenure professor, who works at Drexel at Westfall College of Media, Art, and Design. And he was walking through with his students on his way back to Philly when he saw my exhibition pop up and said, "What is this? And what do you do?" Two questions. I said, "This is a sneaker exhibition just highlighting, sneakers connection to hip hop and fashion."
Yeah.
He pulled out his card. He said, "I need to hear from you. I've been looking for someone like you for a while." And that led to his effort to make me the first Rankin Scholar in residence from sneaker culture, which led
Yeah.
to my residency at Drexel. And it led to my sneaker exhibition in the lobby of Westfall College called the Soul of Philadelphia, that was there for the entire year. And they were even using it as a recruiting tool to try and get people to come and sign up at
Mm.
Westfall College in that year, 2018 into 2019. So we've always used exhibitions as the gateway to the greater conversation about the work that we do, but we
Yeah.
never do it by ourselves. We bring in, my homegirl Des from Fly Kicks. I brought her art
Hmm.
in and put it in the exhibition. She makes amazing sneaker art with sneakers deconstructed and then put on canvas and painted. Um, at the time, my homegirl
I
Flower,
think
she had these.
I seen her artwork. I seen her artwork.
Yep,
Yes, I've seen it before.
yeah, she's a good one to have on too.
Yeah.
Um, my homegirl Flower was making these totes, these sneaker themed tote bags, had those on
Yeah.
display.
Yeah.
So I always look at these things like writing a movie, and you need a cast, and the cast has got to be
Okay.
all star hitters. They got to be doing dope work. So we never do these things with the intent for it to just be us getting the shine. We always make sure that
Yeah.
there's a cast of people doing dope work involved. That's be it
Hmm.
including them in an exhibition, putting them on a panel, allowing them to come in and do a podcast, photography work, doing the signage in the exhibition, whatever it is, where we can bring in other people
Yeah.
from the sneaker community that are doing dope shit, we do that.
Yep.
So we always use our exhibitions as the conduit to do that. So, now 12 years in with exhibitions, our exhibitions have seen by over 12 million people in various
Yeah.
capacities
Mhm.
over the years,
Yes.
through work in colleges and universities, public art partnerships, over 12 million people.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggerated number. Matter of fact, I might be understating it because when you work with the right people to help you control your narrative,
Hmm.
you're going to get a big enough audience
That's
for that.
true.
And that's what we've been successfully able to do on that end is curate exhibitions in spaces where there isn't any gatekeeping or
Yes.
there's minimal gatekeeping and there's maximum exposure of our experience, the black experience, the hip hop experience, the sneaker experience. There's maximum exposure of that to a very broad audience.
Yep. Agree. Agree. I agree with that 100%, Sean. And before we conclude the interview, Sean, is there anything else you want to tell the people that you've been working on? Because you've been doing a lot of dope stuff recently. I know you just actually partnered with Dunk Exchange as well, if I'm not mistaken, just recently,
Yeah,
right? I've seen the videos of that as well. That was really dope.
thank you.
So
Thank you.
that's really dope. I love that. So, anything else that you're working on that you want to let the people know about?
So, three quick hits. Um,
Okay.
Working on a new space for the Social Studies Community Academy because that's where we're going to be rolling out our 3D printed sneaker sample program, which is actually courtesy of Ali Shaheed Muhammad from A Tribe Called Quest. So,
Legendary.
he's one of our co-founding partners of the academy. So the 3D printed sneaker lab is courtesy of him. Um, I'm working on a short film called The Thrill of the Hunt.
Thriller Hunt.
Um,
Thriller Hunt.
it's going to be distributed in a way never done before.
Hmm.
Still, again, doing the fundraising for our Strictly for the Ladies program.
Yep.
And um, there's another podcast coming. We've teased it a little bit over the last couple of years, but myself and my man Marcus Gatsby, Critical
Marcus. Shout
Lace,
out to Marcus.
yeah, Critical
Cut
Lace
Place.
Theory, the podcast is finally going to jump off and we're going to get moving on that. It's going to be some really powerful stuff on that one because that's, sort of, a child of OSD, if you will, the
Yes,
OSD
it
podcast, but
is.
the subject
Yes.
matter and who we talk to is going to be different and more appropriate for the times and the challenges that we're in as creatives and people in the footwear industry. So those are the four things that we
I
have
love
going.
that. I love that. Shout out to Marcus. Marcus is another person that you link me with as well. Shout out to Marcus is definitely a good dude, wealth of knowledge
Yeah,
as well.
he's
And
one of
all,
the folks. He's one of the folks that again, when I think about people who are going to continue this work and his
yes,
legacy of this work, he's one of those folks. He doesn't necessarily think exactly in the same vein about everything, but he understands, the principles of it. He
Yeah.
has his own
Yeah.
style and flair. He don't try to dress like us. He don't try to act like us. He's
Yep.
himself.
It's himself.
He
Yep.
has a good bridge and connection to what the current generation of
Yes.
consumer and sneaker lover and everything is. And there's a lot of value in that, in him being who he is.
Mhm.
And we've been friends for a long time. So, I want him to be one of those folks that people, the same way you see me, I hope that there's some
Yeah.
younger folks out there that eventually see him that same way with the
Yeah.
work that we're going to put in with critical lace theory.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And also, shout out to Ali Shaheed Muhammad, legend himself.
Yep.
So shout out to him. So I definitely love the work that you all been doing, Sean. I also want to mention, the episodes of OSD that's dropped this year. The episode with Eastside Golf.
Yep.
That was dope. That was dope to
Thank you.
have them because they doing a lot of dope stuff right now. So to
Yeah.
have them as guests, I love that conversation that you all had with them. So I want to shout that out as well. That's available right now on
Yep.
YouTube. Right, they could go on YouTube and watch it if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So just want to let the people know, go and check that interview out and the other interviews they have released as well this year. So
Yeah.
I want
So
to
we
say
have
thank
the
you. Go ahead.
OSD Archive YouTube channel, the OSD
Yeah.
Live Archive YouTube channel. It's an archive channel now,
Okay.
because the podcast game has changed dramatically since
Yes.
we first jumped in. And
Uh-huh.
one of the things that we realized when we came back with these first 5 episodes is if you have an old existing channel, it's not going to get pushed and people aren't going to see your content
Mm.
the way you intend. YouTube's algorithms are all set up for you to get new subscribers
New
and new
subscribe.
views through channel growth, meaning you need to start from scratch.
Okay.
So we're in the process of setting up a brand new YouTube channel, and we'll move those 5 new episodes over and
Okay.
start the growth process and, do all the things
Yeah.
that you need to do to get maximum exposure for those. But on the OSD Live Archive channel now are the 5 episodes from our comeback season, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, Stephen Smith,
Yeah. Steven
legendary
Smith.
designer. Jason Coles, who did the book. Peter Moore, sneaker legend. Our man
Hmm.
Matt Priest from the FDRA. We did an episode, Tariffs for Dummies. Eastside Golf. And we had our homegirl Lois Sakani from Snobette on. She was one of the
Okay.
first actual new guests. Um, so we got some great episodes. I
Yes,
feel like
we
I'm
do.
forgetting something, but we have some great comeback episodes for people to
Very
catch
great.
on the OSD Live Archive YouTube channel.
Hmm.
Again, we're not getting the numbers we really want to get because it's an old channel, so legacy channels aren't being pushed on YouTube. So
Yeah.
no matter how hard you try to push them, even on other platforms, YouTube themselves is not pushing legacy channels. If it's a new channel, you got
Not
all the
pushing it.
chance in the world to get your subscriber game and your audience growth up. But old channels, and our channel is very old. Our channel is 10 plus years old on YouTube. We ain't getting no love from the algorithm,
Yeah.
which is fine. So we'll start the new channel, put those episodes over there for people to catch, and hopefully they catch on and we can get folks to appreciate the East Side Golf episode
Yeah.
and all the other ones like you did.
Yeah, yeah, that was really great. I love that one. The Stephen Smith one was great as well. I learned a lot of new information from that, episode as well. So I just want to say thank you, Sean, as always, for coming on the platform. You always welcome. Love what you're doing. Like I mentioned, you inspire me, inspire a whole group of generations. So what you and D is doing is so pivotal, man. So great for the culture, man. So thank you so much for coming on the show as well.
Thank you for having
Everyone.
me, bro.
Oh
And
yeah,
whenever you need
yeah,
me, I'm here, man. And
exactly.
thank you for giving me this platform to spread the word
Yes,
about the GoFundMe for our women's campaign and
yep.
just go back down memory lane of this 18
Yeah,
years now.
18 years.
Um, because today, again, today's the 27th, right? Today
27.
is the actual 18th anniversary.
Yep, that's so true. That's so true. So that's a blessing, man. That's a blessing for you to share that with me as well. Thank you so much for everything that you do, Sean. And also thanks to everyone for viewing this episode as well. So
Thank
really
y'all.
appreciate that. All everyone for tuning in. Peace and love and live life, everyone.
To be continued, y'all.
Yep. Take care, everyone. Have a good one. Peace.